Alright, today we're going to, we're skipping section 5.2, going right into section 5.3. Need to understand that we are going to start graphing lines today. We're going to start the old school way, which isn't really old school, but it's the most general way to try to graph a line. And we're going to do that by learning a couple things today. We're going to learn how to create our own points, and we're going to learn how to plot the points correctly. Now, I need you to understand that I notice a lot of you are getting, not a lot, but at least some of you are getting bad habits in terms of how you're working, and I need you to know that I can teach you how to do this stuff very well, even if you don't like math, even if you haven't been good at math. I've been doing this for years and I've seen a lot of success, but the only successes I see are when people actually try to do what I ask them to do, especially on the videos, especially on the worksheets, and that when they get the worksheets, even if it's not being collected, that they try their best to just work out as many as they can and ask questions on it. So trust me on this. This is not as hard as what it seems. It's not as hard as what you might think it's going to be. It's actually pretty easy. You just have to make sure that you, again, try your best to follow along with what I'm doing here, because if not, then you're going to find out that after about a week or so you're going to be way behind and everything's going to look difficult. Whereas if you stick with me, then every day will probably be just as easy as every day we've had so far. A couple things wrong, of course, here and there, and a couple topics that are a little tough, but nothing to where you're walking in class feeling lost. First thing we gotta learn how to do is find points. So if we consider the equation y equals 4x plus 3, we learned last chapter that the x is the domain or the input value. That means that's what we put numbers in for, and that y is the output value in this case, or the number that comes out. This means we can choose any value that we want and plug it in for x. So in finding points, we can create any point we want, but there are some certain numbers that don't make sense. For example, choosing the values of x equals 1,000, x equals 500, or x equals 1.23 by choice is not smart. Think about the fact that this is typically what a grid looks like, and can you imagine going all the way over 1,000 grid lines over? That's not going to be good. 500 grid lines wouldn't be good either. And think about trying to plot 1.23 over in any direction on this thing. So again, when we're talking about choosing points, we typically want to choose numbers between -2 and +2. If you remember when I said that we needed to create a table, those are the numbers that we use. So -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. But the real question is, how many points do we actually need to graph a line? So thinking about how our points usually were whenever we made our table successfully, the points typically did something like this, to where you'd have a dot here, and then you'd have a dot here, and then a dot here, and here, and here, and here, and you would see that these dots made a straight line. My question is, how many points do you actually need to know where this line is? Do you need all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these points to see that this is a straight line? Do you need just 5? Do you need 4, 3, 2, or 1? Here's what I'll do to help you out with this. First off, I'm imagining a line through this point. One point is obviously not enough for you to see what direction my line is going to go, because it could be going up and down, left and right, diagonally. But here's the good news. Once I give you a second point, you pretty much understand that the line is going to go something like this. And so you don't need a third point up here, a fourth point down here, a fifth point, and sixth point. Really all you need to graph a line is 2 points, because you need 1 point to start and the other point to give a direction. Once you have that, everybody can see what direction this line goes. If I have a dot here and a dot here, you can see what direction the line goes. So 2 points is all we really need. So when we go to creating points or finding points, we only need to find 2 points. And so our question is, what are the 2 best points to choose? So I'm going to get my calculator here as we think about what is the easiest number to multiply by. Some of you say 5, 2, 10, all that stuff. But let's think about this number here. 9 times 0 equals 8 times 0 equals 11 times 0 equals 100 times 0 equals 0.2563987 times 0 equals 0. In my opinion, the easiest number to multiply by is 0, because no matter what you do, it multiplies to give you the answer of 0. And so 0 is the easiest number to multiply by, just because no matter what happens, you're going to get the answer of 0, and it honestly does everything you need for that. So that would be a good point for us to choose if we're going to be making our own table, if it works. That is, it doesn't always work, but 99% of the time it's going to work that 0 is the best point to choose. The second easiest number to multiply by, again, getting your calculator out. If you're thinking in terms of having to think about what the answer is, let's look at 6 times 1, 8 times 1, 13 times 1. And let's look at the fact that every time we multiply by 1, whatever we're multiplying by is going to be the answer. So the answer just kind of comes down as it is. 1,000 times 1 is going to still be 1, and you don't need to multiply anything, you don't need to change anything. But to me, the second easiest number to multiply by is 1. And so what you'll see with math people is that if we have to plot a line or graph a line or pick points, we typically choose 0 and 1 if we're going to pick our 2 points. There's going to be situations we'll see later where we'll choose 0 and 0, but you can't do that right now because that doesn't really work the way we want it to. But for right now, what we're looking at is the best 2 points is 0 and 1. So today, make sure that whenever you go to graph a line, because we are eventually going to do that, that you pick 0 and 1 to plug in for x and go from there. So now let's see if we can find 2 points on some problems real fast. Again, you don't need to write this, but just follow along and make sure you understand it. And if anything doesn't make sense, just raise your hand or bring your computer over and ask me about it so I can try to help you to understand it. Given the equation y equals 2x plus 3, the first thing you do is you write down x equals 0 and underline it, because that's the number we're going to plug in. X equals 0, because remember that's the easiest point. And then what you want to do is use the algebra that we've learned. Remember that whenever I turn a letter into a number, I use parentheses. So we're going to rewrite this equation, y equals 2, but instead of x we're going to put a 0, so parentheses 0 plus 3. And this is the work I'm going to need to see on tomorrow's quiz. It's also the work I'm going to need to see on your papers today for credit, because I am going to be coming around looking at that. That turns into y equals, well, 2 times 0 is 0 plus 3, which means that our final answer is y equals 3. And when you go to talk points, remember x goes first because that's your input, comma, y goes second because that's your output, and so your first point would be 0, 3. And it's that simple. You need a second point. Well, again, the best second point is x equals 1. And so we write down our label to let ourselves know what we're plugging in, and we go back to our original equation and we write everything except for x. So y equals 2. Well, instead of x we're going to put a 1 plus 3. Again, the nice thing about multiplying by 1 is that 2 times 1 is 2 plus 3, and then 2 plus 3 turns into 5, which means my second point is x equals 1, y equals 5, and there are my 2 points for my equation. And in all honesty, once I know how to plot these two things, I can plot these 2 points down and I will have the graph for y equals 2x plus 3. As I'm trying to point out, it is a very simple process. But if anything on this does not make sense, please make sure you talk to me about it. I can clarify the information. I can try to give you a better way to think about it. But you have to communicate with me, because if you allow me to start leaving you behind, it's not going to get easier. It's only going to get worse. And this unit lasts until, I think it's a 5-week unit. So it'll be 4 more weeks of just kind of fumbling around and getting frustrated. So if anything's not making sense to you, please speak up for yourself. Let me know, and let me try to help you. So again, 0, 3, 1, 5 were the 2 points for that. So you're also going to see a question that says find 2 points for the equation y equals negative 5x plus 2. So again, what we will do, the best point to choose is x equals 0. And so we'll write everything down except for the x, which will turn into 0. So y equals negative 5 parentheses 0 plus 2. Then we will see y equals, well, this is going to be 0 plus 2. And then 0 plus 2 is, of course, 2, which means my first point is x, y, 0, 2. Not tough. Then we're going to choose x equals 1. Again, we're always going to plug in for x because that's an input number. We're going to choose x equals 1. Now we do y equals negative 5 parentheses 1 plus 2. This, of course, makes negative 5 plus 2. And what we've learned about negatives and positives is that that means to subtract. For those of you who need a calculator, type that in, but I think today you should be able to survive without using a calculator, and I suggest that you try it just to keep your skills sharp. But negative 5 plus 2, because the negatives win and there are 3 more negatives, is negative 3. So my second point is x equals 1, y equals negative 3. So those would be the 2 points that we need, and that would get us the answer that we need to find. Okay? Once we know how to plot points, or how to find points, we now have to learn how to plot them. And it's important that we understand the organization of the plane. So write this stuff that I'm about to write for you, just to make sure you understand how this graphing thing works. First off, every graph is made up of two axes, as we call them, and so that's where these two lines come from. This is always your x-axis, and it represents what direction the x's are going. You'll notice that you'll see marks here for x equals 1, x equals 2, x equals 3, and so on. This will be your -1, -2, -3, and so on. This axis here is what we call our y-axis. It represents the numbers that go up and down. Again, the y's would go up as 1 and 2 and 3, and they would go down as -1, -2, -3. That is a typical grid for what we look at. Now, you're not going to have to do this on the test, but I just need you to understand that the x-axis goes this way, the y-axis goes this way, that the positive x's are over here, the negative x's over here, positive y's up, negative y's down, and that this point represents 0, 0, or the origin, as they call it whenever they talk about things. So again, the origin is the center point of this plane. Alright, so once you have that written down, go ahead and unpause the video and let's continue. It says ordered pairs represent both axes x and y. The first number tells us how far to go on the x-axis. Remember, that's the left and right direction. The second number tells us how far to go on the y-axis, which is the up and down direction. We have to put these two together in order to plot the point correctly. Let's look at plotting some very basic points before we move on. So just watch me plot these points. Again, if anything happens that you don't understand, please stop the video, raise your hand, bring it over to me or something so I can try to help you, or me or Mrs. Hines can help you, anything like that. That'll work. Here's the thing. 0, 4 as a point. So you're going to plot these 2 points. 0, 4. This is my x. On my x, it means that I don't want to move left and right at all. But the 4, if you remember, positive y's are 1, 2, 3, 4 up. That is 0, 4. So again, 0, 4 means don't go left and right, because that's what the 0 means. Do not move left or right, but do go 1, 2, 3, 4 up. 1, 6 means from the origin, go to where x is 1 and y is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Second dot. And of course, if we were going to draw a line, we can see exactly what that is. We can see what direction that line's going. So 0, 4 means don't move yet, but do go 4 up. 1, 6 means go to where x is 1 and y is 6. Again, this is where x is 0 because it is in the middle of all the numbers. If you're looking at the second one, 0, -3, again means don't move left or right at all, but do go down 3. That is 0, -3. Again, the y's are negative in this direction, positive in that direction. 0, -3 means don't move left or right, down 3. 1, 2 means go over 1 on the x and up 2 on the y. And again, you can see the line that we would have if we were going to actually graph that. 3 has 0, 0. Well, we remember 0, 0 means don't move left or right. Do not move up and down. That is the coordinates for 0, 0. 1, -2 means go over 1, and -2, remember, for y means go down 2. And that is 1, -2. Again, if you're looking, you can see where the line for that is going to go, and that gives you all you need. And the last one, 0, -5 means don't go left and right, but do go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. 1, -3 means go over 1 and down 3, because remember, you have a negative y. And again, you can see exactly where my dot is. You can kind of visualize what the line's going to look like, and that's what we're going to be doing actually right now. So let's put all this together as we get ready to move on to our worksheet, because there is no Math XL today. We just need to get some practice on doing this stuff and reviewing for your quiz. So let's put both skills together and graph some lines. First, again, we're going to create 2 points using our understanding of what we call good values. Remember, the easiest number being 0, second easiest number being 1, and then we're going to plot those points and graph the line that results from those 2 points. So looking at y equals 2x minus 3, again, we want to show the work if we want our credit. X equals 0 is our first point we're going to choose, and we put y equals 2 times 0 minus 3, because that's what we're putting in for x. This turns into y equals 0 minus 3, which means that y is -3. That means that my first point is 0, -3, and I can go ahead and plot that point because I am not going to move left and right at all, but I am going to go down 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to use x equals 1. Again, going up to that equation, turning my x into 1, 2, parentheses 1, minus 3, which means that y equals 2 minus 3. And in the end, you get y equals, well, 2 minus 3 is -1, which means that my second point is 1, comma, -1. Going to plot that, I go over 1 to where x is, down 1 to where y is, and now I need to connect those. Now, you may not have a ruler with you all the time, but you can actually use a piece of paper to create what you call a straight edge by simply taking that piece of paper and folding it 2 or 3 times. I'm going to go for 3, but as long as you've got a decent fold, doesn't have to be a perfect fold, but 3 folds usually does the trick and makes the paper thick enough that you can now use that edge to connect those 2 dots. And so when you draw your line, you just make sure it goes all the way across the region, and that is the line of y equals 2x minus 3. Here's the beauty of it. I can now go to my graphing calculator and put in the way you graph on this thing is you type the number, type exactly what you see. It's 2x minus 3. The x button is right here where it says xt theta n. Again, if you're looking, it's right under the mode button, right next to the alpha button. There's your x, and then minus 3. And then you notice when you go to graph it, it may not look exactly like it because of the scale, but that is the same exact line as what we just graphed. Alright. Second one, graph the equation y equals -4x plus 5. Again, first thing we want to do is pick our points. X equals 0. So y equals -4 times 0 plus 5. 4 times 0 is 0 plus 5, and 0 plus 5 is, of course, 5. With that said, our first point is 0, 5, which again, 0 means don't move left or right, but the 5 means go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, and put down your dot. Then you do your x equals 1 because that's the second easiest point to work with, and you get y equals -4 times 1 plus 5. -4 times 1, again, multiplying by 1 gives me the same number, so it's -4 plus 5, which turns into y equals, well, 5 wins by 1, so y equals 1, which means my second point is 1, 1, which means go over 1 for x, up 1 for y. And again, if you're going to graph this, you take your straight edge and you connect those 2 dots using the straight edge all the way across the region as well as you can. And that is how you graph a line. Okay? So, taking that, we got one to write here for your notes before you move on to the sheet of paper that you're about to get from me, or that I might have already passed out. Graph the equation y equals 3x plus 1. Actually, it's going to be up on the cart where you turn your computers back in. But graph the equation y equals 3x plus 1. Go ahead and at least write the formula down and just put graph y equals 3x plus 1. And here's what we do again. We put down our x equals 0. As you write this down for yourself, this is a format of what you need to be doing for your today and your quiz. Y equals 3 parentheses 0 plus 1. Then y equals 0 plus 1. And y equals 1, which gives us the point 0, 1. Then we're going to do x equals 1, which is y equals 3 times 1 plus 1, which again, multiplying by 1 is simple. That just becomes 3 plus 1, and then 3 plus 1 turns into 4, giving us the point 1, 4. In the end, whenever you've got a cheap sketch, just start with that axis like we usually do, and just kind of make your own marks. 0, 1 means don't go left or right, but do go 1 up, so I put a tick mark there and put a dot there. 1, 4 means go over 1, so put a tick mark for going 1 over, and then make sure your marks go up to 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Put your second dot, and then again you take your straight edge and you simply connect these 2 things all the way across the grid, and that is our graph. Again, if I was to type this in, plus 1. You end up with a graph that looks almost exactly the same, goes the same direction, everything is good. So go ahead and get the worksheet for the day. Start working on that. Again, you should not, I don't think any of you are really going to absolutely finish it, but again, get that, work on it as hard as you can, and then we'll start going over at the end of the day and get all this stuff ready and get you ready for your quiz tomorrow at the same time. So good luck.